Rights and interests in real estate. Review. In the previous section, we explored how property is classified, regulated, and transferred, from distinction between real and personal property to the many layers of government regulation that shape property ownership in the United States. Now, we will bring those concepts together into a comprehensive snapshot review of rights and interests in real estate, showing how everything you've learned fits within the framework of property law and ownership. Real estate as property. The U.S. Constitution guarantees citizens the right to private ownership of real estate. However, this right is not absolute. Ownership comes with limitations because others, including the government and private individuals, may legally assert claims or interests against one's property. For example, a mortgage lender may hold a lien until a loan is repaid. A city may impose zoning restrictions or property taxes, and the state may exercise eminent domain to take private property for public use with just compensation. Land. Land refers to the Earth's surface, the subsurface extending downward to the center of the Earth, and the airspace above, stretching upward to infinity. It includes natural attachments such as trees, minerals, and water. Land possesses three unique physical characteristics: immobility, indestructibility, and heterogeneity. It cannot be moved, it cannot be destroyed, and no two parcels of land are exactly the same. Each parcel is unique in its location, shape, and attributes, which gives real estate its inherent value and individuality. Real estate. Real estate includes land plus all improvements permanently attached to it, such as buildings, roads, fences, and wells. These man-made structures enhance the value of the land and are considered part of the real estate because they are affixed with the intent to remain. Improvements are vital in determining property value. Undeveloped land gains marketability and purpose through development and construction. Property and the bundle of rights property refers to anything that can be owned, along with the associated rights of ownership. Ownership of real property carries a bundle of rights, which includes possession, the right to occupy the property; use, the right to control and enjoy the property within legal limits; transfer, the right to sell, lease, or convey ownership to others; exclusion, the right to keep others from entering or using the property; encumbrance, the right to pledge the property as security for debt. These rights can be separated, sold, leased, or transferred independently. For instance, an owner might sell mineral rights to one party, lease airspace to another, and still occupy the surface. Real property rights. Real property rights extend to the air. Air rights, the surface, surface rights, and beneath the surface, subsurface rights. Air rights allow construction of buildings and use of space above the land. Surface rights pertain to the actual use of the land. Subsurface rights relate to the extraction of natural resources, such as oil, gas, and minerals. Water rights. Water rights define ownership and use of bodies of water adjoining a property. Under the doctrine of prior appropriation, states, especially in arid regions like Arizona, control the use of surface water and issue permits to ensure fair distribution. First in time, first in right governs priority among users. Literal rights apply to properties abutting non-moving bodies of water such as lakes or seas. Owners may use the water up to the high water mark, but the state owns the land beneath the water. Riparian rights apply to properties abutting flowing bodies of water such as rivers or streams. If navigable, the owner's property extends only to the water's edge, as the state owns the riverbed. If non-navigable, ownership extends to the midpoint of the waterway. Real versus personal property. An item may be classified as real or personal property, depending on its attachment and intended use. A chandelier installed in a home becomes real property, while a portable lamp remains personal. Fixtures are personal property that has become real property through attachment, such as built-in appliances, ceiling fans, or a well pump. Courts use several criteria to determine whether an item is a fixture: intention, adaptation, functionality, relationship of parties, and contract provisions. Trade fixtures differ because they are installed by a tenant to conduct business and remain the tenant's personal property, provided they are removed before the lease ends. Implements are crops requiring human labor, such as corn or wheat. Although they grow in the soil, they are considered personal property because they result from human effort. Conversion occurs when real property becomes personal property through severance, such as cutting down a tree, or when personal property becomes real property through affixing, such as installing a built-in dishwasher. Regulation of real property interests. Even though private ownership is protected, real property is regulated by multiple levels of government to ensure fair practices, safety, and community welfare. Federal regulation focuses on national concerns, including fair housing, environmental protection, and land description standards. Federal agencies such as the FHA and EPA regulate housing finance and environmental safety. Federal laws like the Fair Housing Act prohibit discrimination, while the Americans with Disabilities Act, ADA, establishes accessibility requirements. Importantly, the federal government does not levy real estate taxes. State regulation governs real estate licensing, professional conduct, and regional land use. In Arizona, the Department of Real Estate, ADRE, oversees licensing and compliance. States can define ownership structures, establish environmental rules, and delegate taxation authority to local governments. Local regulation includes zoning, building codes, and taxation. Local governments control how land is developed, issue building permits, and assess property taxes that fund schools, police, and infrastructure. Judicial regulation is based on court decisions and precedents, interpreting laws and resolving disputes over ownership, contracts, and usage. Common law and case law ensure consistency and fairness. Quick review of core principles. Land includes surface, subsurface, and airspace. Real estate is land plus improvements. Real property includes ownership rights, known as the bundle of rights. Fixtures are personal property that become real property through attachment. Trade fixtures and implements remain personal property. Conversion changes property classification through affixing or severance. Federal, state, and local governments regulate ownership and use to protect public interest. Discussion. Why are property rights often described as a bundle? Answer. Because ownership is not one single right but a combination of rights, possession, use, transfer, exclusion, and encumbrance that can be separated and transferred individually. Why does the government regulate private ownership of real estate? Answer. To protect the public, ensure fair practices, promote safety, and balance private interests with community welfare. How do fixtures differ from trade fixtures? Answer. Fixtures become part of the real estate and transfer with ownership, while trade fixtures remain the personal property of a tenant and must be removed before the lease ends. Why is the doctrine of implement significant to tenant farmers? Answer. It ensures that tenants retain ownership of crops they planted and can harvest them even after losing possession of the land. Closing remarks. All real estate practice revolves around one simple truth. Ownership carries both rights and responsibilities. From the soil beneath your feet to the air above your home, from the crops in the field to the buildings on the land, real property ownership is deeply intertwined with law, regulation, and human intention. The professional who understands how these rights are defined, limited, and transferred can confidently navigate every transaction, protect their clients, and uphold the integrity of Arizona's real estate industry.